Good evening and welcome to another edition of Why Can't We Be Friends? And we are in partnership with GTX Connect and Dell Community Driven Initiatives. This evening, we are going to be having a panel discussion around the topic of caretakers and parents of people who have cognitive limitations. I don't really know exactly how to say it. I don't like any of the ways of saying it. So I plan on getting an education this evening about this, and I'm looking forward to it. Chuck is going to go ahead and put in the chat right now a link to Slido. And Slido is the way that we ask our participants questions. You can hit that link, you can go in there. There's already a few questions that have been posted. You can vote on questions that are already there, or you can write your own question. And as you vote for questions, it kind of bumps it up to the top of the list. So when I'm going back and forth in between Slido and the Zoom room, I can kind of pick out the questions that are at the top that are the most popular and go from there. So we are going to have our folks introduce themselves to us this evening.
Hey everybody, my name is Jenna Clarno, and I teach special education resource and inclusion in Killeen ISD, and I've taught for 16 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Teresa Shields. I'm a parent of a child on the spectrum, and Jenna actually taught my kiddo when he was in PPCD, which is like a class that's pre-kindergarten and kind of prepares the kids for elementary school. And so Jenna's been a part of our lives for a long time now.
That's great. Okay, so yeah, if you guys want to click on those links or copy and paste those links into your browsers so that you can get in there and start putting your input in on questions. And then I will go ahead and start with our very first question, which is, what are the most common myths that you think people who live with cognitive impairment have to deal with? The most common myths. And whoever wants to start can do that.
I would say, from my perspective, I'm really not sure how to phrase it, but one of the things I think people don't realize is that our kids want to be involved just like everybody else. They want to have relationships, friends. They want to have romantic relationships. My son wants a girlfriend so bad he can taste it. And I think people forget that. I think that's probably the biggest thing that people don't think about when they think of our community.
You know, I also think about, like, they still think they're kids. You know, they treat them like a kid, not an adult.
Yes.
Even though they're an adult, they're like, well, they're a kid. And I'm like, that's not a kid. That person's 25. Let's treat them like an adult, right? Because I think they see them as that, because that's where their mental capacity is, you know.
Good to know. And then how old did you say your son was, Teresa?
He's 19. He'll be 20 this summer, and I kind of feel ill about
it. Nice. Okay, I'm going to click over to the Slido application. And then, you know, I might as well go ahead and ask this too. I remember we were talking about it before we got on live, because I had asked Teresa how she refers to cognitive disability, cognitive impairment, whatever that looks like. And she said that she will say that her son is on the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that's kind of a phrase that people have come to hear and kind of maybe know a little bit about what that means, maybe not. But, you know, just kind of saying, I usually just say, oh, he's on the autism spectrum. usually what I say. You're right though, Kelly. There's not like a great way to I don't know, label it, although I don't really like labels so much, but there's not really a great way to say it. So that's just what I say.
Right.
Well, in the schools, they've changed MR, mentally retarded, to a new term, which now they're calling intellectual disability, which I find interesting. It's got a little less stigma than, your child's MR,
Yeah, I'll say, Drew will tell me, he was like, being called retarded or anybody using that phrase and they hear something they don't like and you say that's retarded, that really bothers him. It has such a negative connotation to it, and so I try to be aware of that because he's told me directly I don't like hearing that. And if he heard my mom say it one time and he's like, I kind of stepped back. Ooh, she's gonna get it. And he does not like it. He shouldn't say that.
Yeah,
and I've told people that too.
Not to say it.
I've told people, yeah.
So I've noticed. I feel like my generation in the '90s, we said it a lot, and then I noticed it went away, which I was happy about. Because I felt offended by it. So I imagine if I felt offended by it, like a lot of other people did too. And I have a 10-year-old daughter and I have noticed that it is coming back. And so we have had to have the conversation of, it's not okay, right? It's
and
not
the kids notice, that's the other thing I would say. People think that the kids don't notice those snide remarks. They hear them. They hear them, and they may not voice that it hurts them, or they may not voice that they were left out of a kid's birthday party or playing a game at school or something, but they notice. And so I do try to. I find that now that I have a child on the spectrum, I've tried to view things more as a gift than a challenge, because it's made me look at things in a different way, in a to me almost more pure way. Right? Like he will always kind of have that view of the world, and I love it. It's something I wish I had just naturally that I don't. And so I've learned a lot about how to love people and how to be kind to people and how to be thoughtful and aware of what I'm saying when other people are around, even if they may or may not hear what I have to say. These kids get it. They do. They just may not be able to tell you that they understand.
Yeah.
So I remember the term that I heard that I liked, and it was because I always have a hard time when people say things like disability or impairment or anything that kind of just puts that blanket judgment built into the label. And it was neurodivergent. That's what it was, or neuroatypical.
I think I've heard that a couple of times, but it's not. Yeah. It's a mouthful.
It hasn't. Yeah. People would be like, "What does that mean?"
And I'm like, it just seemed more. It didn't seem so terrible. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like to say something is divergent or atypical doesn't seem as harsh as saying something else. So
it feels very medicinal, doesn't it? Like,
right? Or just neutral, right? It feels neutral. It feels kind of, it feels kind of more neutral.
We had that experience recently at school where this person that does all of our testing was calling a parent to give them the results of their testing. And, that's always a difficult discussion. And they said, your child is ID, and they were like, huh? And they said, oh, your child's MR. And they were just livid. Like, it was the way, it's the way we come off and the way we, instead of saying your child is a low IQ and it means that this other class would be helpful and they would learn a lot more, they were just like flat out, just put it out there. And I was like, it didn't go very well,
That's hard as a parent to hear too, because
yes.
I saw something I think it was last week that said being a good parent, I'm not going to do it, just being a good parent is kind of letting go of what you think your kids' lives are going to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then just loving them for who they are. And, that struck a chord with me on several levels. But when it comes to Drew, I remember when he was diagnosed, we just kind of, you go through this mourning kind of process. And so, for the people out there, if they know of someone whose child's just been diagnosed, just being there for them and giving them a hug. You just say, it's going to be okay. You take it a step at a time. One thing I've learned is not to try to predict the future, because every time I turn around, Drew's doing something new and blowing me away. And, when Drew was in Jenna's class as a 4-year-old, the thought of him sitting in a desk and having to take like a real live desk and sitting all day in class, taking tests, I was like, he'll never do it. He just won't. And now he's 19, he's taking classes at ACC and works at Taco Bell. So, I think one of the things one of the things I've learned is you just never know. That's for any kid, but to already kind of try to put a limit or a lid on what these individuals can do and can achieve and what they can contribute to society. We really shouldn't do that. They've got so much to offer.
So I will click in and see what the next question is.
Have you ever heard of the poem "Welcome to Holland"?
No.
Yes. It's fantastic.
Well, it talks about like you were planning a trip to Holland, and you were gonna go see all the stuff that Holland has to offer, the flowers and the windmills, and then you end up in, I don't know, somewhere else, right? And it's not what you expected, and you don't know the language, and you have to relearn everything, but then you get to see the beauty in it, right?
Nice.
That's so true.
Yeah. It's just a different kind of beauty.
Yeah.
It's not the windmills that you thought you were going to see,
But it's just as, I would argue it's more impactful.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the next question we have on here is, what is the most heartbreaking or difficult experience that you have had to deal with working with this group of marginalized people? And if you guys want to take a second to think about that, that's kind of, the word heartbreaking is difficult in it. That's like a hard question. And it doesn't have to be the most, maybe, it just however you want to answer that question in terms of difficulties or challenges that you have experienced over the years in being a caretaker, being a teacher, being a mom of somebody who is classified as neuroatypical.
I think for me, when I taught PPCD, it was that first diagnosis, right? And those parents getting that first diagnosis of whatever, right? It could be anything from a speech delay to autism to ID, now they call it now. And what they're, because I've never had to go through that, right? And so being on the other side of that, sitting across the table while they're telling these people, this is what your child has, and this is the path we're going to send your child down, which isn't the path you expect your child to go on, right? And just being able to be there and comfort that, and watching them bring their child to school for the first time when they're 3 and they're, they developmentally 18 months, and you're dropping them off at school and watching the parents walk away from them the first day is heartbreaking. You remember that day, huh?
I remember that day vividly. He rode the bus, and I got in the car, and I drove behind the school bus, like 5 blocks from our house. It was terrifying.
Yeah,
For me,
I've had
what's that, Jenna?
I've had parents do that.
Okay.
Follow the bus too. You're not the only one.
I didn't think so. For me, for Drew, it would have been, I think it was just continuously being left out. He didn't have hangout after school until I want to say 7th grade. So that's how old? 12 years old to kind of hang out with a friend. And then that friend kind of moved along. I don't know if he was teased for hanging out with Drew after school or what the story really was. I don't really know. But that was really hard to know. He was never included in anything. He was, he was never invited to go to a football game or go to, like I said, birthday parties. He was like in elementary when you kind of have to invite the whole class, but after that, he never. And that was hard to watch because I knew he wanted that, and he still does. Like even at 19 years old, he lives at home, and he'll come out on the weekend. He'll say, "Well, what fun things are we going to do today?" Because he doesn't have friends to do those fun things. So I think that's although it's not like one specific thing, it's kind of the same little thing over and over and over again his entire life. So he doesn't have a community, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Was he in general ed classes?
He was. He was in general ed until 10th grade, and then Jenna, you'll have to help me. So there's like the general ed class, and then there's like an in between class, and then there's like full and special ed,
like a resource class.
A resource class,
yes.
Right? So that's what he was in from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Because just the pace of the academics in high school was just a little overwhelming. So we did that kind of middle ground classroom.
Okay. The next question on this is, how do you avoid or prevent burnout as a caregiver or parent?
I don't know. When you figure it out, let me know. I'm always worried. I'm always, thinking about, well, what happens if, he lives with us? What happens if something happens to myself and my husband? What is he going to do? How is he going to live? Who's going to take care of him? Who's going to take advantage of him? That's kind of going back to the previous question is I'm always afraid somebody's going to take advantage of him, in one way or the other. Because, he would give his debit card number to anybody that, and just not, he doesn't think of those consequences. So I don't know how to avoid burnout. That's a great question.
I think as a teacher, because it comes from teachers too, is when work's over, walking away from work. Like for me, I have to be like, Tuesday, I don't do work. I go home and I do me, right? Wednesday, I go home and I do me. Now, Thursdays, I might do some work, but you know what I mean? Like I have to find that balance. And on the weekends, I'm only allowed to do this much work because if not, I could sit there all night, every night and still not be done, And there has to be that balance of life and work for me.
Yeah.
And we always try to keep it fun too. I remember when Drew was first diagnosed, we went to like a parent support group meeting, and everybody was so down and sad. And I was like, I told my husband, I was like, I can't do this. This is not life-giving to me. I need to find the fun in it. I need to, try try to make the best out of it. Try to find those little nuggets of pure joy and celebrate those little things. The day the child could strap his own seatbelt, I mean, that was like, I think all parents go through that, right? As soon as your child can put their seatbelts on and you're not crawling around all over the car. Those little things, but I mean, those little things we try to celebrate even more because there's lots of them. The first time he used a fork and a spoon, or drank out of a cup without a lid. The first time he spoke, he didn't speak until he was 4. And he didn't give hugs. He didn't show any kind of affection for years, and that was really hard. We've kind of moved past that, but we just try to avoid burnout. You kind of have to do as much celebrating as you can on every little thing that is a step in the right direction.
Well, and it sounds like your son tries to help too when he walks out and says, "Hey, what fun things are we going to do today?" Because then your brain's going in the direction of, "You're right. What fun things are we going to do today?"
Yeah. Every Saturday, every Sunday, Thursday and Friday. It's what fun things are we going to do this weekend?
So the next,
I remember when he was 3 and he finally figured out that, well, you said he really likes you because he gave you a SpongeBob character name, and it was really like a connection. And when you get those really good connections with kids, they last, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
he still calls you Sandy Cheeks.
Forever Sandy Cheeks.
Yeah.
But it's that connection, right? Like I think when these kids get that connection with other, whether it's adults or peers, right? Those are lifelong when they make them and they can connect, genuinely connect. I think they become lifelong friendships when they find them.
Yeah, these individuals, like I said, they want those connections. They really, really do, and even the individuals that are nonverbal, they want those connections. They can't. They may not be able to tell you. They may not be able to have a conversation to connect with you, but they want friends. They want people in their lives. They need a tribe, and so we connect on whatever there is to connect on, whether it's SpongeBob SquarePants or anything.
do you think that there are good social programs in this country / state to help support these folks? So I guess, what do you think of the social programs that are in place? And then maybe if you can tell us what you think would be beneficial if they added or if they took away, or you guys are going to know a lot more about the state of that, right, than anybody else in these rooms right now, in terms of even things like legislature and things like that are directly geared toward this population. So how do you think the state or even the school district or Central Texas, however you want to answer that question?
As a parent, that's a big question, and I'm so happy that somebody is thinking in those terms because so many people don't. The school district, we're in Round Rock School District, they have been phenomenal for us. They have given us every resource we needed. Occupational therapy, he could have physical therapy if he needed it. He didn't really need speech therapy. Everything he got through the school district for the most part. Absolutely phenomenal. What happens though is you get out of the school district, you're 18, there's nothing. There's very, very little. And what there is difficult to find. You have to jump through hoops to get it. There is a program that when Drew was diagnosed when he was 2, and the doctor or the person we were working with over at Bluebonnet Trails Mental Health Facility, said you need to get on this list. I think it was a class list. So he was 2 when he got on that list. He didn't make it to the top of that list for services until he was 14. So, and if nobody had told us to get on this list, we never would have done it, or we would have done it way late, and then he would be where he is now, just getting services. So I think there's not much of a conversation about services for young adults. These kids need jobs. There are a lot of places around town that have been so great with supporting these kids with getting them jobs. Some of them aren't so great. They'll kind of use the program to get these kids to come in basically as interns and never really hire them for a wage. And that's a problem. Getting the jobs, if you're not getting them through help from the school, is difficult. And so, and having, people at these employers with kind of the understanding of what kind of support this individual needs. So that's where I would say is where we need more conversation, more help, more funding, more visibility. It's really hard for that 18 plus set.
I agree.
Just to follow up on that, and then Jenna, if you'll answer the question too. So you said that he goes to ACC. Does ACC have programs or services, or is that something that he's just kind of doing on his own?
He's a part of the STEPS program. So it's he takes 2 classes a semester, one Monday, Tuesday, one Wednesday, Thursday. And the classes are all kids with some sort of, they may not have autism, be on the autism spectrum. They may have some other kind of, what did you say, Kelly, neurodiverse?
Right.
So they may have something else, but these classes are great. The teachers are phenomenal because they understand what the kids need. They talk to them like adults, like Jenna was talking about earlier. And then, they take classes on business ethics. He's done business math and business English. And I think there's like a retail course. So they learn how to work in retail. There's all these little kind of life skills courses to get at, but I say life skills, they're more like life skills work-wise. But my biggest fear is him wanting to cook for himself and burning my house down. Like, that's like one of the things that I think about. And so I would love to see something, and there's probably something out there, I just don't know about it, because like I said, it's hard to know what's out there. Where you do situational awareness type of thing, situational awareness in the kitchen, situational awareness, out in the community. And Drew's kind of like in this in-between state where he's what some people would call really high functioning. So he doesn't qualify for some of the things that other people would qualify for. And because it's such a broad spectrum, it's really hard to figure things out and what's available and what he qualifies for and what's too much and what's too little. And it's all very confusing.
So explain to them what class is, because I don't think they know. Most people don't know what that means.
I really don't know. It's a federal program, I believe. You'll probably do it better. You probably do it more justice than I will.
No, I don't know any justice. No.
It's a federal program, and I think it's tied to Medicare, and so he can get services like music therapy. He does do music therapy. He does have a recreational therapist, and they help pay for that. And there are other things that we could ask for that just don't make sense for him. You know, equestrian type of therapy, he wouldn't enjoy that. I think there's like an aqua therapy, different things like that he may or may not qualify for. And they do have things like where you can get an assistant to help with things around the house, or help them with bathing and caring for themselves. Drew doesn't need that.
Right.
But that's also meant to kind of help with that burnout for parents.
Or like caretakers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Community Living Assistance and Support Services.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. We just call it the list because he was on it for so long.
Yeah. And they do that. The problem is they have to get on it so early to be able to get any kind of service. And when they graduate high school, right? And if they are low enough, they can stay till they're 22, right? But then they're like, what do I do? Do they stay at my house for the rest of their lives? And then when I die, what happens, right? And like there are places, right, that you can have your kids go live in a group home. Georgetown has a fabulous one called Big, where they have work jobs that they do, and they just started the living community, right? But they're expensive.
And they're few and far between.
Correct.
There aren't many options.
Right.
And like we were saying, it's a spectrum. So people that may not qualify for something like that, but still need some extra support, we're kind of in this black hole. So that's where we are, our family anyway.
So there's a lot of room for improvement, but there are some things out there. And then Jenna, did you want to answer that question for you? Like how you think the state, school district, county?
Well, I mean, I don't think that the school districts, at least, and I teach resource, which is like those in between kids. It's those kids that like, right, they're not atypical, and they're not kids that need to be in a life skills class to learn how to, eat and take a bath and go to the bathroom and all that, right? But they're the kids that are in between that have like, their IQ is like 75, 80, 85, and they kind of fall through those cracks at our district. Like there's no class between general ed, a resource class, which they come to for this long a day during the day, right? To get those skills they need to catch up to be where their peers are, or, fill in those gaps, right? And then, or life skills. Like in my district, we're missing that like in between class, which I think is what Drew was missing.
Yeah.
That in between class that we don't seem to have, where those kids go, because they get lost in the general ed class. Right. And then they go to these resource classes and we work on those skills that they're missing, but it still doesn't help them fill that gap for what they're doing in the classroom. And then those kids are still stuck doing stuff like state testing, right? Which they're never going to pass, but they're forced to do it. And they're judged, every kid is judged on that, right? And it goes on if you have a kid in special ed and they have to take that test, it goes on every one of your IEPs that you have, when you have a meeting with your special ed teachers, it goes on every meeting that you have, and it gets harped on, but a lot of these kids are never going to pass. And I have some currently that say, it doesn't matter if I pass this class because you're going to pass me anyway. I'm in 4th grade and you've just passed me on anyway. Like, it's sad that they already know that. Right? And there's not that place that those kids can be successful. Because a lot of our kids that are in that in between just feel defeated.
So the next question is a good follow-up for that, which is there any advice that you would give the average person about how to best advocate for children and adults with cognitive impairments? Like how they talk about allyship and advocacy for a lot of different groups. So what does that look like for this group? What would you tell us?
That's a hard one.
I know, right? What's out
I
there?
don't know. I mean, I think talking about it, doing stuff like this is
Mhm.
phenomenal because
Right.
it just normalizes it some, you know, I
Mhm.
think people, I think, I guess more and more people are being exposed
Mhm.
to people like this, but so it's more of a topic, and people are becoming more familiar with it. I would say, you know, as an individual, keep your eyes open. If that
Mhm.
that person that didn't hold the door for you as you were coming, instead of like under your breath, you know, maybe there's something more going on. And
Mhm.
it really can be as simple as using your manners and people treating people the way you want to be
Right.
treated.
Right. No matter what.
You know,
Mhm.
because that person that won't look you in the eye when they're talking to you, that, you know, that's a big, that looking people in the eye is very difficult for people that are on the autism spectrum. So I would say just be patient with everyone, because you can't always see what's going on under the surface,
Mhm.
right? You can't see that someone's brain works differently
Right.
than yours. So just being aware and treating people the way you want to be treated is probably the biggest thing, and something that we could all stand to do for a number of reasons, but that's a different topic for a different day. But I think, you know, and then so being patient and being inclusive, if you see someone, you know, in your break room that's always by themselves, invite them to sit with you. Little things that make a big difference. And as far as like advocacy and making changes on a larger scale, I really don't know. I'm not.
No.
I don't know. I don't have a better answer.
That was great.
No, I think those are great. Those are great things also. And things like Special Olympics, right?
Yes.
Like I know Drew does a lot of that, and I know other kids that do a lot of that because it gives them that social outlet, right? Where they
Yeah.
can and you know, when I was in college, we that was one of the things that they had us do in class. One of the classes I took, that was like part of your grade was to go do a Special Olympics event and like get involved and see what that's like. And you know what? All of that, they need buddies. They need a lot of them to have buddies that do it with them.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Special Olympics. Every
Yeah.
time I go, my heart melts inside of my chest. I'm like, there's not a dry eye in the house. Everybody is just so touched by these kids. And I guess it was a couple of years ago, Drew's Special Olympics track meet, a local church youth group came and they asked for the names of all the athletes on our team. And they made posters with the kids. So like there was a poster that said, "Go Drew," and you know, and they would just be there in the stands with the signs and you know, just there to clap and pat them on the back and just get, if you see that there's a Special Olympics track meet going on and you're not into necessarily partnering with them and volunteering, just go and hang out for the day and watch the kids. You will be moved.
Right. Yes.
You will be moved. There's just no way around it. It'll be the best part of your day. I guarantee it.
So how often is the Special Olympics something they have all the time, once a year? Is it specific for every city, like Special Olympics Austin, Special Olympics New York? Like, how does that work?
It is a year-round thing. So Drew does track and basketball and bowling and powerlifting and swimming. So those are his sports that he does with Special Olympics. And there's like a plethora of them.
Yeah.
So he's
So people
involved.
could just Google search like Special Olympics
Oh
Austin,
yeah.
and it'll tell us everything we need to know about events and things like that going on.
Like I know Georgetown has at least one group through the school that does it. And I think they have a group of adults that have graduated, but I know they do it through the school too, through the high school. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, you can definitely get involved. I'm sure they will take lots of volunteers because it's a big thing. Like this friend of mine's son he does golf. One of his is golf and bocce ball. And they went to like Japan and fundraised and like went and did Special Olympics in Japan. So it's like a big deal.
Yeah. That's good to know.
But it's like a good place for them to socialize with people,
Yeah.
with their peers, really,
Yeah.
and make those friends.
Yep.
Because I know my friend's son, man, his uncle does it with him. He's his peer buddy, and man, they do it all the time, and they've got a whole group of them that are just buddies, and they hang out and they do Special Olympics, and it gave him that like network of friends that he needed.
It's phenomenal. I love
Mhm.
everything about it.
So someone just put in Slido that Special Olympics had healthy athletes and this is underattended. I don't know exactly what that means,
I don't
but
either.
it pushed it up to the top. Let me see if I can get some clarification because I think that they also,
Maybe they have a lot of athletes, but nobody to help run it.
it says
I'm not sure.
just ran this weekend in Bee Cave. It's going to run again in May in San Antonio. There are
Yeah.
8 services represented and the coaches do not bring the athletes through. They have a lot of volunteers. So it looks like somebody's really familiar with this. So thank you
Yes.
for the extra information. It's appreciated. So let's see. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and did you feel like you answered that question,
You're
Jenna?
good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. We have somebody on here who has said, and it's got a vote for it, so it pushed up to the top. What joyous experience have you encountered with this line of work, with the parenting, with whatever it is? Like, what is a joyous experience that you just kind of want to share with, other than, the monumental experience of the seatbelt buckling, which is great.
It's up there.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because sometimes when you want to go, you just want to go.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say one of my favorite things that we've done, aside from Special Olympics, because that truly is incredible. But Tim Tebow's A Night to Shine has been another thing that we've done that is just, so if you're not familiar with it, what it is it's basically prom for our kiddos, and they do it up really, really well. I mean, there's a red carpet and there's somebody on a microphone announcing the kids as they come in, and then you go into the prom and there's a shoe shine for all the dudes, and they'll do nails or makeup for the ladies, and they'll do pictures, and it's basically a huge prom, and it's been so much fun. We absolutely love that event. So I would say that Special Olympics, as far as like events go, personally, graduating high school, I didn't think that was going to happen. I really didn't. I wasn't so sure. That was huge. And he graduated in 2020, and like during the pandemic, so it looked a bit different. But I think it ended up being, I think he enjoyed that more than being in a HEB center, where you couldn't move around or anything. So graduating high school, some of those things that we've really found joy in are things that we weren't so sure would happen, like graduating high school, like talking, like being able to feed yourself and keep it relatively clean, tying your shoes. There's been these moments of joy all the way through. For us, just recently, our sons started to acolyte at church. So that was a huge moment of joy. Just seeing him, whenever he's participating in something, is huge. So you've got to find the joy in the everyday things. Getting a job, oh my gosh, that his first paycheck was wonderful. Like that's a big deal.
Yeah, somebody put in the questions. They were very concerned and wanted to make sure that he was being paid. They were like, he's getting paid at Taco Bell, right?
Yeah, he works at Taco Bell on 79 and I-35 right there at the corner. He loves his job.
He told me his favorite part of his job, because we message on Facebook. We're Facebook Messenger friends. I've known him since he was 3. And we Facebook Messenger. And my favorite thing was when I asked him what his favorite part of his job was, and he said cleaning.
Cleaning.
It just
The president say eating. One time I asked him about he was doing bowling at Special Olympics bowling, and he's like, I can't wait to go. And I said, really, why is that? He's like, I'm in it for the French fries. Just make this day.
Nice. For me, I mean, when you see a kid get it, no matter what it is, right? And they have that look in their eyes, like I can add two digit numbers and borrow and regroup. I can borrow and add and subtract, and you can see that look in their face when they finally get that thing they've been struggling with for so long, and it just comes automatically now, and they can do it. And it's that light in their eyes that like, oh, I'm not dumb. Like, look, I got it. I've tried this for, we've been working on this for, months on end, right? And they finally get it. And it's that look of like success. You see it a lot. Yeah, you see it a lot in like the general population, right? Like, oh, I get it. And you see that look. But when you see it in a person with a disability, right? It's like bigger. It's the joy is bigger. The moment is bigger. You just see the like accomplishment, and they go and tell everybody like, look what I can do. Look, can I show you? Can I show you? And they want to show off that they can do it. And it may be the littlest things, but they're excited about it. Like, I can finally write my name, or I can finally like, write a full sentence or multiply 2 digits or whatever it is, right? I can, eat with a spoon. Like, they get so excited, and it's that true joy, right? That I think
remember when he was in your class, when Drew was in your class, I didn't think the child would ever hold a crayon or hold a pencil, and then he came home from school with a piece of paper and had blue scribble all over it, and I couldn't believe that he held that crayon, and he did it, and he was so proud of that scribble. And so were we, because we really didn't, it was like the child would not hold a crayon or, or a pen or a pencil. He was just not into it and didn't want anything to do with it. And then all of a sudden, it was like this light came on, and, oh, this is what I can do. I'm capable of creating something.
So there were people asking in Slido about high school diplomas. So Drew has a high school diploma.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then do most of the people who go through the school like that end up with just a regular diploma like everyone else, or?
I don't think so. I don't know statistics. Jenna can probably talk about that. But from if the kids do those kind of in between, what did you call them, Jenna? Resource class?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they do that, they basically have a modified diploma. And so they can stay even after they walk across the stage and what we would consider graduate. They haven't really graduated. They don't even take their diploma. They can stay in the system until I think 21 years old.
22.
And they get these extra services if they need them. And then once they kind of move past those, then they kind of technically graduate. So although Drew walked across the stage in 2020, I would say he graduated in 2020, he didn't get his diploma and truly graduate until 2021 because he was still receiving some, I guess they call it 18 plus program
Yes.
support through the Round Rock School District.
And yeah, that 18 plus program, they do job training. They make sure they get them out there with a job coach to find a job. They learn a lot of those, at least the ones I've seen. They learn a lot of those like life skills.
Yeah.
It's a lot of life skill learning. Like, how am I gonna hold a job? What am I gonna do at the grocery store? How am I gonna cook something? Like some of them, they do cooking and laundry. Some of the ones I've seen, the lower level ones, and no, they get a modified degree of some sort when they do that program. But there are kids that come out that are on the spectrum that graduate with a regular degree.
Right.
I mean, there are those, neurotypical achieving kids that are just on the spectrum, right?
Yeah, because it is a spectrum. So.
Right.
Most
some of them-
definitely.
So some of them do get regular diplomas, and there's different degrees of regular diplomas for kids nowadays too.
Mhm.
I mean, you can be an honors graduate or a regular graduate or so it's not like we all have different degrees of diplomas.
Yeah. So in the schools, in order to qualify for those services, do they have to be referred through these mental health like screenings or testings, or is it just
I don't
gonna-
know. I think
Well,
so. I don't know.
As far as I know, I don't deal with that up the high school stuff. Because, give me the little ones any day. I like the older ones too, but I don't want to teach them. I would hang out with them all day long probably, but I think that once they get diagnosed with whatever on the spectrum of disabilities, right? It depends on what their disability is and what their needs are, because it's based on their needs, right? Every
but
student
there does
comes,
have to be a diagnosis.
Yes,
yes,
I believe
and that
so.
comes through the school.
Mhm.
Yes. And so all these kids will get a diagnosis of some sort, right? And then they have a meeting with the school and the special ed teacher, and they come up with a plan as to how we're going to teach this child and what this child needs to learn, right? When they're little, most of the time it's when they're little bitty, right? What are we going to teach them now? What do they need to learn right now? And every year you have one of those meetings, and as they progress, we progress into what they need to learn. And then
And it's very fluid. So
Right.
we started, I think Drew had some occupational therapy to begin with when he was in Jenna's class, and then maybe halfway through, a couple of years later, we don't really see him getting much out of this anymore, so we stopped that.
Right.
But it's definitely a discussion, and
right.
I think at the beginning I was saying we got most of our support through Round Rock School District. They were fantastic and really pulled us in and,
Mhm.
asked us what we thought. And I don't, sometimes I hear horror stories about how people really have to go out and fight for their kids to get services. That
Mhm.
wasn't our experience in Round Rock School District, which, I feel very fortunate to have been
Mhm.
in this school district and gotten the support that we did.
And I know when I worked for Georgetown ISD, they had started a parent network, a parent group to connect all those parents. Because I think that also is a thing that happens is the parents kind of feel like they're floating over here and in their own little world and don't know anybody and don't know anybody that's going through that or has been through that. And so they started this network to try to connect. I've been through that. My child was diagnosed at 3 also. Here, let's connect. Right? So you have somebody that you can talk to. And you're not
Yep.
just a lone wolf out there in the world trying to figure it all out. Because I think that's a lot of it is a lot of these parents have been through it and they know the system and they know what to do and they know how to do it. And I think a thing that would be super helpful to continue that in other outside the school district, like what do we do when my kid's 21? Let's connect these parents in a group like this maybe or something, right? Let's connect these parents who have been through this and have an adult child. Their child is now an adult and this person's got a 15-year-old, right? How can we connect them so they can learn from each other?
Yeah, And I would say too, like, Special Olympics was great for that as a parent,
Mhm.
because a lot of the things I would hear about was just, when you're sitting around in between basketball games and you're just sitting there for, you start talking to people and
Mhm.
finding out about different programs and things like that. So, relationship has been huge. And not that I have to have these huge connections to get anything, but just kind of
Right.
hearing what's out there, because
Mhm.
it's kind of all over the place. There's not like one place, like one outlet mall that you go to and you to find,
Right.
okay, this is what I need. So it's a little difficult to figure out what's out there and what you need and where to find it and that kind of thing. So
Well, we are about at our hour mark. I wanted to, sometimes I sneak in here because I saw some people who were making, so we have Michelle who had written to the panelist. My son was diagnosed around the age of 2 with a form of autism, PDD, which led us on a journey to do all we could to nurture our child to become a self-sufficient, independent, and morally decent person as he could be. We struggled with uneven special ed resources in several school districts in Texas throughout his school years. For the past 15 years, he has worked in housekeeping department at a hospital in Austin and lives independently.
that's awesome. Congratulations.
A hospital.
Yeah. And then she
cool.
says, are there local parent support groups that he, as a 43-year-old, and I could be, as a proud parent, to contribute to? So I don't know if you guys know.
I don't know. Mm-mm.
Yeah. It's so funny because several times I've been listening to this and I'm like, they need the Meetup app. They need the Meetup app. Like, what if there was like a meetup just for, because you can make meetups for anything, right?
Right.
You can be, I thought at one point in time I was going to make like a cheeseburger meetup, and we were going to eat cheeseburgers like all these different places, and anybody who wanted to go eat cheeseburgers, like I thought it was genius. And I was going to use
Tacos.
the Texas 50 top cheeseburger like guide as like where we were. Yeah, I didn't do it. But meetup groups like for parents or for kids or for adult children or for people in their 40s that are, fall on this spectrum, people in their 30s, like, I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of room. There's a lot of ways to kind of figure out how to get that more of a connection.
Yeah.
I mean, community, but I keep hearing over and over again is just how important community is. And it sounds like, that the Special Olympics stuff is just like kind of just a saving grace, a lifeline, a joy, just so many great things, connecting the, diagnosed individuals together, connecting the parents together, all that kind of stuff. And it would just be great if we had more of that, So, but yeah, so I don't really
Oh,
see.
look, there's a bi-weekly. You can't see it.
Is it a
There's-
meetup?
Bi-weekly special education advocacy group. They meet every other week.
That's so
That's
cool.
awesome.
I'm gonna
There's
have to find it.
There's a advocacy and champions. What is this? Advocacy and champions program support. Yeah.
That's
there's all kinds.
awesome. Somebody
check it out.
did it.
This one's
Yeah.
from IBM, it looks like. I don't know. Check it out. They're on there.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us tonight. These conversations are so essential for everyone to get a better understanding of just things that maybe we have no idea about, right? And I know that I always actually feel better as a human being after these shows because I feel like I learned so much from listening to people talk about their experiences, their lives, and just really being authentic and sharing with us all of these things. And so I really want to thank both of you so much for being willing to get on here and share all this with us. And with that, I will say good night.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.